Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, I'm going to be going over the new gun control measures that are being presented within the Senate. Now, as always, if you want to join us here at the Bald Brad Show or heck, support a conservative, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. Folks, let's just get a thumbs up for our Second Amendment rights. With that being said, this comes from Paul Saka of Blaze Media, and he says a bipartisan group of 20 senators, including 10 Republicans, and I'm going to show you the list of these 20 at the very end of the show, announced framework for a deal to implement new gun control measures. The gun legislation was quickly put together in the wake of the Uvalde shooting, which ended in 19 students and 2 teachers being shot dead at Robb Elementary School in Texas. Well, check out this quote here because it's kind of interesting. Quote, "Today we are announcing a common sense." They throw this word out as if they have common sense, like people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all these people. And like I said, when I show you the list of some of these people, you're gonna be like, there's no way in hell that they have common sense. But when they throw it out there, they just want people to hop on the bandwagon and vote for this thing. Bipartisan proposal to protect America's children, keep our schools safe, and reduce the threat of violence across our country. Now, I will say some of these measures do reduce the threat, but they don't stop the threat. There's a vast difference. You can create a lot of things that are going to reduce it, but not in fact actually stop it, which is what Democrats wanted, right? They want to remove the AR-15 because they said it's going to stop it, because that's what most mass shootings utilize is the AR-15. Then they say, oh, well, we need to get rid of all assault weapons because that's what causes mass shootings and it will stop it, it will resolve it. And Republicans and conservatives are like, that's not going to stop it. And honestly, neither will these measures that they're putting forward. Families are scared. And it is our duty to come together and get something done that will help restore their sense of safety and security in their communities. Again, this measure is just a feel-good thing. Oh, we did something. Let's put something together that we did do that doesn't kind of hurt people, but doesn't solve the problem. But we're going to say it solves the problem by utilizing the word common sense. That's all this is happening here. So again, I'm going to go over the bullet points in a moment. Now, this next paragraph here actually is true. Quote, "Our plan increases needed mental health resources, improves school safety and support for students, and helps ensure dangerous criminals and those who are adjudicated as mentally ill can't purchase weapons," the joint statement read. So that part is true. That component does roll over into these bullet points that we're about to get into. It says, the first bullet point, support for state crisis intervention orders. What this does, it provides resources to states and tribes to create and administer laws that help ensure deadly weapons are kept out of the hands of individuals whom a court has determined to be a significant danger to themselves or others, consistent with state and federal due process and constitutional protections. Now, I want to kind of be open about this. This bill hasn't, in fact, been created yet. These are just kind of points that they put together as a proposal and as a measure. So we'll get more details on this, on actually if it's going to inhibit law-abiding citizens their right to protect themselves and their right to the Second Amendment. Investment in children and family mental health services. National expansion of community behavioral health center model. Major investments to increase access to mental health and suicide prevention programs and other support services available in the community, including crisis and trauma intervention and recovery. So that at least is some sort of acknowledgement that a lot of people are killing themselves with guns, which is true within the data. But the thing is, again, this is supposed to be correlated to these mass shootings. But what they're doing in this bill is they're trying to make it seem like they're doing everything they possibly can for these mass shootings and making the bill even bigger than what it should be so that they can show there's a lot of fluff in this, that they're doing a lot of things. Protections for victims of domestic violence. Convicted domestic violence abusers and individuals subject to domestic violence restraining orders are included in NICS, including those who have continued a relationship of romantic or intimate nature. Now, I don't know about this one. I don't know if I'm fully a fan of this. Most likely not. Again, I need to see the details of it. There's a lot of domestic violence that goes out there and really what goes into these restraining orders. So if you have a domestic violence restraining order against somebody that claims that you did something like a crazy girlfriend or a crazy boyfriend, and that's going to inhibit you from protecting yourself and utilizing the Second Amendment, I don't know if I'm fully on board with. Now, I fully get there's people that do commit domestic violence that maybe shouldn't be in or utilizing or having the opportunity to have a firearm. I think there's a conversation to be had about that, but that's for a later time to see if they actually implement this and give us the details. Funding for school-based mental health and supportive services. Invest in programs to expand mental health and supportive services in schools, including early identification and intervention programs at school-based mental health and wraparound services. I'm on board for utilizing this. Again, as a high school teacher myself, I've seen a dramatic increase, a massive increase of mental health issues with students all across the spectrum. So I think more of this funding is a good thing for our schools and our kids, not necessarily being correlated to mass shootings. but just there's a lot of kids that aren't crazy that just need that service and that help, and they're not able to get it outside the school system. So this is a plus for me. I like that. Funding for school safety resources. Let's see if they actually get in the nitty gritty here. Invest in programs that help institute safety measures in and around primary and secondary schools, support school violence prevention efforts, and provide training to school personnel and students. I like that. Now, here's the thing with this. There's only so much you could do in terms of safety in schools with the funding and everything. This is so general that I don't even have an opinion on it. I think school safety should be there. But if your training is for obviously the active shooter trainings, and it's just a more of a synopsis of the run, hide, or run, hide, fight type idea where I'm supposed to fight somebody with a handgun, or we'll just say a firearm in general with a stapler or tape dispenser, that's just not going to work for me. Okay, so we need some more substance here of maybe there's armed personnel on campuses that we're going to pay for, or we're going to arm our staff and our teachers and they have to go through training and we'll give them a stipend for it, all sorts of things. Maybe that's a conversation and something they should implement within here, but I doubt it. It's probably just going to be more fluff that we're used to because, again, it's common sense, folks. They're doing something. Look at me. Woo. Clarification of definition of federally licensed firearms dealer. Cracks down on criminals who illegally evade license requirements. I'm baffled. Again, all this stuff is supposed to stop mass shootings. Again, cracks down on criminals who illegally evade licensing requirements. They've already committed the crime, probably. So say there's a criminal with a firearm, right? They evaded the licensing requirements to get that firearm. They go thus and then commit that mass shooting or some sort of crime. You catch them, and then you're just going to give them harsher penalties for committing that crime. Now, I get that you could pull somebody over in a traffic stop and this could be applied to that, but we're correlating this, or supposedly correlating this, to the mass shooting that happened in Uvalde to stop this mass shooting from happening to everybody. I digress. I think you guys know where I'm going with that. Telehealth investments. Invest in programs that increase access to mental health and behavior services for youth and families in crisis via telehealth. All for that. I think having services for people where they can reach out and get help before something bad happens to themselves or others, that's a good thing. Under 21 enhanced review process. For buyers under 21 years of age requires an investigative period to review juvenile and mental health records, including checks and state databases and local law enforcement. I'm for that. The reason why is, again, as somebody that's a teacher, I've seen a lot of students that end up going into juvie. Even growing up, I've met a lot of juveniles that honestly, you talk to these people and they should not be having firearms. So going through, and maybe this is what they meant by having more extensive background checks, I'm okay with. Again, I'm okay with background checks. If somebody is a law-abiding citizen, they're not a harm to themselves and others, which gets into kind of some sketchy territory on who actually gets to signify and classify that. I'm okay at least with law-abiding citizens having and purchasing a firearm. Now, if you're a juvenile and you committed some serious stuff, there's a lot of talk. Maybe you shouldn't be having that firearm, but there's a lot of conversation too that, hey, you know what? You're before 21, you maybe made a mistake. Again, this isn't specific enough to have actually a substantive, or a substantive, I guess is the correct word to use, in terms of having a conversation about it, because we don't have enough on it. It's like, who's deciding things? What qualifies in a juvenile record of something that wouldn't classify you as to getting a firearm after the age of 21? Like, is there a list of things of if you committed these crimes, you're not going to get a firearm for buyers under the age of 21? I guess I would imagine from 18 to 21. There's just not enough there for me to have a full concrete opinion with honestly a lot of these things. But again, the purpose of this is just to present it to you on what's going on within the Senate in terms of these gun measures. Penalties for straw purchasing. Cracks down on criminals who illegally straw purchase and traffic guns. Fine. Okay, fine. But again, these lists of these U.S. senators, and actually I'll go back to the Blaze. They have a better list down here for us. They actually split it up a little bit better rather than clumping it together like the Daily Wire does. A lot of this, again, it's just fluff. It's that whole thing of like, look, we did something. We care. We all think that, honestly, every senator cares. I think as a country, we care about children and just life in general for the most part. But this doesn't actually stop mass shootings. And I think it's just going to implement a lot of things that don't resolve the issue. I think it's going to reduce in some way, shape, or form. It does crack down on criminals, which I'm all for. And it offers mental health services, which I'm all for. But these are things that could have been done and kind of should be done just in general as Congress, which is what they're supposed to do. The government's supposed to protect its citizens. I think this is stuff that's kind of a no-brainer of things that we kind of already have, and you're just kind of extrapolating that a little bit of just getting more funding to things that already exist. That's really all it is. So they haven't really done much, but they're making it seem like they have. So you got Democrat senators, and I want to give you an idea of why I'm calling this fluff. Nothing's really being done. It's a bunch of smoke. Because look at some of these senators here: Cory Booker, Chris Coons, Mark Kelly. You have Joe Manchin, which, he's a kind of a read in the wind on things. You have Chris Murphy of Connecticut. So you have certain Democrats within this that sometimes act crazy, sometimes act kind of, pretty spot on. But again, there's not much substance here. Now, there's some Republicans that are part of this, and there's a couple where it's like you expect them to be a part of this, like Susan Collins and Mitt Romney. They're usually a package deal. So those two don't surprise me on this thing. Bill Cassidy kind of does, but the big one here, where is he? Lindsey Graham. I don't know. I can understand where Lindsey's coming from on this, in the sense of, like I said, the mental health, giving more funding and things of that nature. And I don't know what the constituents of South Carolina are actually looking for. So maybe he's hopping on this because that's actually what the people of his state want. But again, there's not much that's happening here with this. It's kind of just bullet points at this point. We'll see actually what the measures will involve. We'll see what they include within these measures and how far they're actually going to expand upon this, and really see if it does limit our right to bear arms as law-abiding citizens. Right now, they're saying it's not, and it seems to look that way. But when you look into some of these measures, as far as juvenile records, the domestic violence, of you having the possibility of not getting a firearm at a later date and time, that stuff needs to be looked at like a fine-tooth comb, because that type of stuff could inhibit a law-abiding citizen from getting a firearm for various of reasons. Well, there you have it, folks. As always, I hope you enjoyed the Bald Brad Show. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I will see you later today here on the Bald Brad Show.